Good afternoon, Feisal, and it's a real privilege and a pleasure to have you join us on the podcast, All Things Business Travel. And I believe that
Thank you very much.
You're no stranger to business travel, Feisal. If you want to give us a bit of background, please.
My God, I wouldn't even know where to start. Actually, to be honest, I'm going back to the last 10, probably 15 years. The reality is at its peak, I would say. I would be taking 3, 4, 5 long-haul flights a month, potentially. Quite a few short-haul. I mean, I can't even imagine how many hours I would have spent upstairs. And yeah, my home, I would say, was probably an airport lounge rather than my own lounge, I would say. Great for the marriage, though, I have to say. We got on very well because I hardly saw my wife. So it's certainly a good idea to improve your marriage.
Well, they say the absence makes the heart grow fonder, but there's always that theory the absence makes the heart go yonder, but that's a different conversation, yeah.
Well, yeah, probably not for this one, actually, but yes, that's a good point.
So
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
So you've gone from being this incredible road warrior, forever planes, trains and automobiles, and then we hit March of 2020, and all of a sudden the world proverbially stops. How's that been impactful for you?
A couple of things, actually, to be honest with you, because, I mean, yes, we as a business, we are an international business, so we've got clients all over the world, so the only way we can get there is obviously through flying. And, the services that we offered, I mean, it was consulting, it was training, and, without a doubt, it had to stop. But there was always this concern, should we, shouldn't we? And even from a client's perspective, they want us to come over, and really waiting until that last minute to say yes or no. And it's quite interesting because you've booked the tickets, you want to go, but then, you're sort of waiting and waiting and waiting. Clients are waiting and waiting and waiting. And we're sort of 2 days before the flight thinking, are we going? Are we not going? But unfortunately, from about March, so you're right, actually, I actually had a long-haul flight booked to Asia, which I think probably a day beforehand was cancelled. And you're then at the mercy of the goodwill that the airline companies are going to refund, reimburse, or at least credit you, and gives you a whole host of other issues to deal with. But so we basically stopped flying. I basically stopped flying, and suddenly started to rediscover what it was like to live back at home, which is quite interesting as well.
Yes, I think a lot of people have found that. But
yes.
So for me, I have to say, I found the COVID restriction very interesting because we got to build, obviously, the travel club that we're the Platinum Plus Club. And people said, maybe you're mad, but somebody said, if you follow the contrarian thinking, at some point you might be right. So how has it impacted your own business, Feisal? Has it created as much opportunity as adversity?
Totally. We had already made the move online in terms of our training and consulting services. So we started already to do that probably 2-3 years ago. And we sort of were playing at it, let's say. But when the change, or rather when COVID hit, it was very clear that the only way we could deliver these services would be through online platforms and media, etc. So we had to embrace media and technology or sync, because we didn't have, we offered a service that would only really work face-to-face. And if we wanted to continue that, we had to find another way to carry on delivering the service. So we really didn't have a choice. We were fortunate that we started a bit earlier. We made some mistakes early on and understood what worked and what didn't work. There was still quite a learning curve, let's say, to get through. We learned as we went along. And I think here we are just over a year on. And for us as a business, we're actually already delivering pretty much all of our products and services that we did beforehand online. But the difference is with video production, media creation, we've actually also been able to open a brand new business line for us in terms of media creation, which also gives our clients a degree of sustainability and future-proofing, which really has sort of given us something that we really didn't think too much about over a year ago. So, it's not without its pitfalls, because of course, when you start a new business line, it's always a risk, but I think it's a risk worth taking because that's where the market is today for us, anyway.
Fantastic. So, if that's the case, it sounds like there's this definition of this new normal, which nobody's defined, and I suppose we get to write the rule book at this point in time. So somebody has gone from 95% travel to zero travel to almost a hybrid, better business model. What does new travel normal look like in your world?
Well, I think travel will come back, and I think the travel now, I think that the people interaction is still really critical, and I think it's really, really critical to understand that you can't do everything over a platform. I think the effectiveness of our meetings, previously we used to go into a market, wherever it was, to try and make a difference in that business. And I think we can do part of that online. But I think now the travel will still be essential because I think in the businesses we're in, especially when it comes to consulting, that face-to-face interaction is critical. And I think it's still important to go. But I think what we used to go for probably will now be different. And I think it will be more meeting driven because I think, I don't know about you, but I get more confidence when you are sitting in front of somebody, when you are trying to have an effective meeting, whereas the services we used to offer, which we used to do face-to-face, could probably happen online. But for me, I think business travel will still exist, but for perhaps a different reason now.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I mean, the statistically, when they talked about for every pound that a company spent on travel, the expectation was a 3x return. And so what I'm maybe hearing, Feisal, and forgive me if I'm paraphrasing this, but what you're now saying is that actually that return could be higher because now you got much more focused set of meetings, yeah?
Totally. And also, the ability to respond online is great. But I think also when you go meet someone, I think, there is so much more in person that you can deliver and achieve and discuss that probably online doesn't allow you to do. And there is that dimension of, I'm not suggesting being tactile, but just being in person gives you, which is why I think the business travel side, I think will never go. And I think it's essential to business. But I think those meetings now will be a lot more productive because I think, budgets will come down, costs will come down, but effectiveness will go up.
So
I would say so for me.
If you had a crystal ball, and obviously you know what old world travel looks like, have you taken any travel trips in the recent times?
Not recently, but we've got some planned now. I've got some European trips planned for the next month, let's say. So that's really what I've got planned coming up. And looking forward to it, to be honest with you, because I haven't been on a plane for a while. So we've got some trips to Europe to take. And happy to start, to be honest with you, and see how the experience changes.
Yeah, no, and I just ad nauseum I've talked about the fact that yesterday was my first business trip in 11 months, and from the time I booked, I was like a giddy child, just waiting to get the roar of the engine as the plane takes off and all that kind of stuff. So I can attest to that. I'm judging by what you're saying that it's not just you. You've obviously got a number of employees that you're going to also send back on the road. What does that present in terms of challenges for the business?
I think given the situation with COVID, you've got to remember, I guess, in the UK, say what you want about, our leaders, we've not done a bad job in how we've managed it, especially in terms of the vaccines, etc. So I think, we're okay. But what we don't know is the countries that we're traveling to. And I think now, when we're trying to put meetings together in other countries, there are so many things, guidelines we've got to think about. Is it a red? Is it amber? What is their view of us? What's their prerequisites before we land in terms of tests, certificates, passports, COVID jabs? So I think there's a lot more due diligence that we're having to take before we send people off to various countries. And also the other thing, of course, is are they happy to go? Because, we're quite fortunate in the environment we're in at the moment here in the UK. But, is everybody else in every other country as diligent as we are here? And that's the other consideration. And I think at the moment people are still very wary about traveling.
Sure.
Holidays, I think, are different, but I think for business, and especially some of the countries we go to, I think people are still going to be wary and concerned. But then, of course, there's this balance because income is earned that way. So at some point you get to a point where you think, well, I'm going anyway because that's our income.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's interesting. I mean, we blended the benefits that we have in the Platinum Plus Club for exactly that. So, for example, airport lounge access to gives some social distancing while you're traveling in transit, and things like the Meeajaun service in case we do need to repatriate somebody home without having this huge cost that takes place. Have you guys even looked into that sort of duty of care stuff, or is that sort of next steps?
It would be next step for us because I'm very careful with anyone I task with going abroad and the due diligence. I mean, at the moment we're erring on the side of caution and no one's flying at the moment. And I think it will be like that for at least another month, but then probably come August, I think we'll start opening up and, because business will carry on. Yeah, it has to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all a testament to that in terms of what takes place. So the biggest anxiety you personally have about jumping on a plane, or have you got one?
Not really. I mean, I always have anxieties when I jump on a plane. I'm worried about who I'm going to sit next to, being honest. That's always a problem for me. I always demand an aisle seat if I can, because I can't stand sitting on the inside. I don't know why, I just can't. And also, if you need the loo,
yes.
It can be quite difficult to jump over two people. But nothing more than usual. Some of the long haul flights, I don't fancy wearing a mask for 9-10 hours, but if you've got to do it, you've got to do it. That's just the way it is. But we'll see how that progresses and how long haul flights progress. But I don't have any real apprehensions towards it, to be honest.
Yeah, look, I hear you, and certainly, I mean, mine was a very short haul, 50-minute flight that you can bear a mask for and stuff. And so you're going to get segregation. So business class will not be masked, economy class will be masked, and whether that's right or wrong is going to be a debate that we won't be able to solve here. But as you go forward, obviously you've done extensive travel, so there must be a little old gold nugget you have, or a rule of thumb you always follow to make your travel experiences better.
Well, there is, to be fair, because when you go in a group, there's always this debate: do you go on early, do you go on late at the end? I always go in first, because if you go in late, especially on short haul flights to Europe, all the locker space is gone on the above you. So I've learned, because the last thing you want is a case with you underneath your legs or whatever. So for me, I always say to people, go in early, because then you know you're guaranteed some space. And generally, on short haul flights, I generally sit at the back, close to the loos, of course. So for me, the two things I always say, I always go in early, and I always take an aisle seat at the back. And generally, once I'm down, then I'm okay. So those would be my tips that I always live by.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'll always book priority pass so I can get in ahead to make sure I get the case overhead and pay that money. And it's interesting. I mean, my own experience is that when I was flying yesterday, it's now, if you don't pay for the cabin baggage, it's now going to be in the hold. So it's now going to be a cost centre for everybody that travels at this point in time. And the interest in Iain, you talked about sort of being at home and stuff, and it's the bit I've had to learn patience when I'm traveling on my own. It's very much about get early, get in, get done. And then when you travel with your family, it's very much around all the kids need to go to the toilet just as they're about to board the plane. And all of a sudden, all of your good work to get early has been circumvented by, can we go to the toilet, Daddy, before we go? So I think I've had to learn patience, which is more difficult. But look, so look, we really hope to see you back on the flights very soon, Feisal, and in doing so, we hopefully will be able to add service to what you're doing. So I'll leave it to one final question. If you had a choice, your most preferred next destination that you'd like to fly to?
My most Wow. Okay. Well, my most the destination I really want to go to, which I've always wanted to, but never have done, doesn't have an airport. So because Monte Carlo is next on my list, so I'd have to fly to Nice, I think. But I do know they do helicopters. I don't know if you offer a helicopter service from Nice to Monte Carlo. That would be beautiful, I have to say.
Actually, we do.
But
would you believe? It's one of the one of the activities you can book through the Platinum Plus Club. So, and if you're not careful, I might very well join you. I mean, I had an interesting experience of missing a flight out of from Monte Carlo back to Nice. We got delayed there was a crash in the tunnel. So I ended up, instead of flying nicely home, I ended up spending 8 hours flying via Birmingham to get back as a consequence of it. So it's a great place to be, mind you.
Right, well, there you go. That's my destination. I'll be come looking for you for that.
Sounds really good. So listen, Feisal, thank you very much for coming on the call, and the best of luck with your new business venture.